morning. It is Wednesday. It's probably about 8:30 right now. This is our first day of PD. So we are walking, I think we're walking to a university. I'm not 100% sure. But on the first day of PD, we are just generally going to be learning about the educational system in Finland. So it's exciting. It is a little cold today. It's sprinkled a little bit, but it's not, I mean, for Southern California standards, it's inclement weather time, but for the rest of them, they're fine. But I'm looking forward to it, so I will try and capture as much of it as I can without being like obnoxious, but here we are. Here's some of the group. And I think that we're almost there. One piece of Finnish culture that I've learned is that they have very defined bike lanes and sidewalks. And if you are a pedestrian walking in the bike lane, that is a big no-no. They will blow their little bike bell at you. And if they do that, supposedly they're really frustrated. So we've been trying to be mindful of that. But other than that, I think we're being good tourists.
All the top level decisions and sort of managing every educational process is being done by educators. And as I've learned, that might not be the case in all of your states. But for some reason, that's the way we work here.
Oh, that's great. That's great. That's already one for Finland.
And my guess, I don't have stats on this, but my guess is that, most of the people who work here have been teachers and then chosen this career path. Some might be sort of only admin type of educational people, but many of them at least have been teachers and then choosing this kind of career.
So the people that are here are the policymakers?
Yes.
Okay.
And of course in our curricular processes and all the planning we invite, interest groups in, but the strings are, held by educators.
Nice.
Yes. Okay. Cool. Let's go.
Okay, so we just arrived at I think it's the Finnish what do you say this place is called? Educational Center? Oh, we've just arrived at the Finnish Educational Agency, and luckily I just got a little clip of him kind of giving some basic background. But one thing that I already like is that the policymakers here in Finland are actually teachers, like current teachers or have been teachers. So it's not just politicians who've never been in the classroom making important decisions for their educators. Thanks, Shamika. You're welcome.
But what the first sort of curious thing might be for you guys is that I believe that at least in the states that I've been to, high school track, college track is really what people want for their kids and what the society tells high school, college, everybody has to go to college. That's what I hear when I come to States. But here I think it's about 55-45. So 55% or 57% of our youth go to high school, and then a little bit less than 50 go to vocational schools. So basically the first big decision comes when you are 15, 16, and that's a real decision that you need to make alone or with your parents. But the big but here is no dead ends. So of course you can do dual degrees as you can in your country as well. But the curious thing is that even if you do not have high school diploma, you can from vocational if you decide when you completed your electrician degree or nursing or whatever that might be, that okay, I want to seek the university path. It's possible to divert there. There are quotas and sort of it's not easy. You have to sort of be ready to do rigorous studying and so on. But there are no dead ends. You can convert back to the university path if you so wish. And next to universities, we have something called Universities of Applied Sciences, which is alternative, more hands-on. Maybe not as, or not maybe, but definitely not as scientific as such as the university sort of studies, but more hands-on and more practice periods in companies and lots of commercial studies and marketing and these kind of things are done here. Of course, doctors, lawyers, teachers go here, but and these kind of. And some employers are actually looking for this path nowadays more than this path. But still, of course, the prestige, the middle class choice in Finland is this. I have lots of friends who say that my kids are going to high school and my kids will get, higher degree of some kind.
Any ideas?
Okay, we just finished up our first session. It was really, Jill, behave back there.
What did she do?
Dancing around. I was trying to be very serious and professional. No, I'm just kidding. We just finished up our first session. We're getting ready to go to lunch. First session was great. When I have some time to kind of sit down and debrief on like my takeaways from it, I will. But we're getting ready to go to lunch, and then we're gonna go visit, daylight. Then we're gonna go visit a fortress, I believe. So far so good. Okay, we just took a ferry. We're getting ready to take a tour. I believe this is like a fortress? Yeah. We're on a fortress, but I want to show you this view. Hopefully you can see me with all the people talking and walking. But that's the city. Oh, and there's baby seagulls right there, you guys. Side note, the birds in Finland are very aggressive. Very outspoken. Oh God, very outspoken. So we're just waiting for a few teachers to take a little potty break, and then we're gonna get started on this tour. So I don't know if I said this earlier, but we had our training. Then we went to lunch, which we just left from. I found some iced coffee at a place called Espresso House, which seems to be like the Starbucks of Finland. Then we took a quick little boat ride here, and we're gonna take a tour. I think this is like one of their historical spots. I don't know a lot, but I know that this is a fortress that we saw on our tour yesterday. There's Tia back there making sure the teachers don't get lost. That's her makeshift flag. I don't know that we want the shortest person holding the flag though.
Around that, mid 1700s, they were losing their power, and at the same time, Russia was gaining power, and Russia was invading, parts of the Swedish Empire, and Finland was, as you know, in the middle of these two powers, and also, the Baltic Sea is very strategic for countries who live around it, and Sweden was so.
So we just finished our tour of the fortress. Not everyone, some people are stopping to get a little refreshment at this little cute cafe. So some interesting things that I learned about this place. Let me sit down in a little scenic area. Okay, some of the things that I found interesting that I learned about this particular fortress is that people do live here. I think he said up to 700 residents live here, and it could be anyone. You don't have to have any sort of military affiliation or anything like that. And that up until 1917, this really was like a military fortress, but since then it's been a obviously a tourist attraction and I think a place where people come from training. I'm not 100% sure, but it was a quick tour, but it was really nice and informative. I feel like I know a little bit about the history of the country, as well as how Helsinki became as large as it is, because that was the other thing. Helsinki was a very small town until this fortress became active in an effort to protect themselves from Russia and Sweden, who were kind of the superpowers way back when. So everyone's getting refreshments, and then we're going to get back on the boat or the ferry that travels to and from here every 20 minutes, and then the rest of the day is ours, and then we do another PD tomorrow. So again, I highly recommend taking one of these trips if you can. I obviously, as of right now, highly recommend coming to Finland. I feel very safe here. I don't feel, you know, nervous in any way. The people are friendly, and the group, the traveling group, everyone is very friendly because we all have the common bond of teaching. So yeah, so I'm gonna go in. Shamika's inside getting something to drink, and then we're gonna probably wait for the rest of the group to show up and then head on back to the city. So this is Stephanie, and come on in here, Bree. These are two third-grade teachers that actually teach in the same district. I used to teach with Stephanie at my old school. Her and Bree teach together now. So I gave my thoughts on this trip so far. So what do you guys think of this trip so far?
Incredible.
Yeah.
Amazing. If you are thinking about traveling, you need to check out Book Bag Tours, because Latanya was the one that told me about it, and I am so grateful to be here right now.
Finland, this is the ultimate professional development for teachers, hands down.
Yeah, we've had just one morning with Peter, I think we're allowed to call him, or Petri,
or Big P.
or Big P.
Mr. P.
Which is what we've been calling him. And it was, I think, maybe 2 hours or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 hours. And just in those 2 hours, I was like, this is so good.
Yes.
I know when I get home, I'll like lay out the differences, but just like the information, his style, like he's just a very soothing person, down to earth, has a great sense of humor. So far, I highly recommend it.
Oh yeah.
I do too.
Thumbs up.
Okay,
so after a slightly misguided, I don't know if it's considered the bus or the tram situation, another group of us, there's some of them back there, we are visiting the Rock Church is what it's called, or what it's commonly called. That's not its formal name. And it's a church that was built by two brothers, two architects, and it's become a bit of a, well, not a bit of a, it's become a tourist destination. And there's actually going to be a performance by an orchestra from San Francisco. They're getting set up now. There they are down there, walking in. I think they're going to start in about an hour or so, but it's pretty cool. Here's a good view. That is awesome. So I'm whispering because, oh, this is the girl that got yelled at on the boat yesterday. But I'm whispering because we are in the library in Helsinki. It is the most, I've literally only stepped 5 steps off the elevator. It is the most beautiful library I have ever seen in my entire life.
Gotta love that Scandinavian design.
Seriously, thumbs up for Scandinavian design. So I'm gonna try and get as much as I can without being like too obnoxious, but it's gorgeous. just walked out of the library, so I'm sorry, yeah, the camera quality is poor. But like I was saying, in case you didn't hear me, one of the most beautiful libraries I've ever, no, I'm sorry. It was the most beautiful library I've ever seen in my entire life. It is 3 levels. The second level, I went downstairs. It's kind of like an area where there's an area for kids to play games, but they're all age regulated. There's 3D printers. The librarians have the system where they know what age group of games the kids should be playing. If you ever needed to bind something, laminate something, make a poster, all that is down there. The bathroom was beautiful.
The hand dryer.
The hand dryer.
It looked like an IKEA.
Once I figured it out, was amazing. It's just, I really just don't have any words. Like, if you're ever in Finland, that is definitely somewhere you should just go. Beautiful. This is a librarian right here, and she just was beside herself. Like, so, highly recommend. And in case you didn't hear it, it's a public library. Like, it is a public library. And not only that, just the seating options, the places to work. Like, I want to live there, is what I'm saying.
There we go. What time is it?
11:10.
Hi guys, it's 11:10 on the first day of professional development. It is Wednesday. Shamika's here. I'm not going to show her because she's relaxing, but if Shamika weren't here, I don't know that I would know what day it is or what time it is because I just can't keep track.
But hey guys.
Yeah, she's here. She's here. It's Wednesday at about 11 and it is still light outside. If I can remember, I'll turn the camera around. So I know I've vlogged all day, but I haven't had a chance in a quiet environment to kind of tell you like my takeaways from today's first session of professional development, because I know a lot of you are interested in the trip itself, but you're also interested in the actual content of the professional development. So the purpose of this first one was to just give us an overview of the Finnish educational system. So I'm going to try and like succinctly tell you what I got from the training. So I have some notes. So if I look down, I'm looking down at the notes. And so really the first couple of things that I thought were interesting is that the first graphic that he showed had a title of No Dead Ends. And so their educational system or their format is to not have any dead end spots in terms of the educational system. The first thing that I thought was super interesting is that he gave this ratio of 55 to 45. 55% of the Finnish population graduates from high school, and then 45% graduates from a vocational school. And right there I was like, whoa, because for us, like, it's danger when maybe a kid doesn't, you know, go to college or graduate high school. But at this point in this country, when a child is entering, I think 9th grade, they can decide, am I going to pursue high school? Or am I going to stop schooling like traditional schooling and go to a vocational school to learn a trade? Whereas that's not really a mindset we have, even though we are now more frequently talking about the need to have people that go to trade school and the fact that not everybody is cut out or meant for college, or that's not necessarily their path, and that vocational school might be a better option for them. When we say that, we're still talking about after high school. We're not talking about a 14 or 15-year-old saying, let me think about my life and decide if I'm going to go to high school or vocational school. So I thought that was super interesting. So at the age of 15 or 16 is when they make that decision. The other thing that's kind of like random but also important, and he really wanted to make a point about this, is that every child gets a home cooked meal every single day. from daycare age to high school, and that this is paid by tax dollars. And he was more than happy and more than willing to pay that. He thought it was one of the most important things that they do, and he was very proud of it. And he's just like in the United States, there's definitely a discrepancy in income levels with families, and his point was like, you can tell those kids who that meal that they get at school is like the best meal that they're gonna get, and he just feels like it's really important, but they get a fresh meal that's cooked every single day. So those are the first few things. Then after that, he talked about what they, and by they I mean the Finnish school systems, want teachers to do as professionals, and it really is about them reflecting on their practice as a teacher. So he gave us 4 words that they kind of live by according to his interpretation, and it was reflect, trust. There are no teacher like none, right?
None. None.
There are no teacher observations in Finland. We all went like,
What?
what? Well, someone said ever, like there's never one, and he said no. So the words were reflect, trust, no observations, autonomy, and recess. So most schools teach a 45-minute block, then they have a 15-minute recess, then another 45-minute block, then a 15-minute recess. His school is a little bit different because they're trying to be more project-based, so they have a 90-minute teaching block, I believe, and then a 30-minute break. But they are having like recess breaks perpetually throughout the day. In terms of teaching contracts, and sorry if this is kind of all out of order, but hopefully it all makes sense. They have a teaching contract, but their teaching contract is applicable to all teachers in the country. It is not designated by state or by district, and it sounds like it's more reflective of things like compensation and not about teacher duties and what time you have to report to work. And you just wait until I talk about what time he has report to work. So I thought that was interesting, being someone that does contract negotiations, that they have like a national contract. High school is structured like a college, so kids can kind of choose their course of study and therefore their schedule. And school time gradually increases as the kids get older. So, and this was another point where we all got like mind blown. So depending on how old a student is determines how many minutes in school they spend. And that's somewhat true in the United States, whereas like kindergartners are only in school for a half day. But I know a lot of you know there is a push for them to be in school full day, because surely that will make things better. But here, they increase their time in school as they get older. Oh, I didn't put the times down specifically. So that was interesting. And then for his schedule, he has to be at work specifically from 2 to 4 on Tuesdays. That is like mandated. There is no work around that. The rest of the week is really just dependent upon the class schedule that has been generated by like their administrator or whatever. I don't know all the details of how it's scheduled because he doesn't either, but the schedule is such, he showed it to us, that there are days where he does not have to be at work until 10:15, because that also means there are some kids that aren't even starting school until 10:15. And then he may have a day where he doesn't start school till 9, but then because of his schedule, there's this block in the middle where he literally said, okay, so for that block, I might go out, I could go play golf, I could come back. And we all just went, what? So they don't have like everybody starts at 8:15, everybody gets out at 2:45. So he said in their society, they feel it's perfectly normal and safe and fine for kids to be walking and traveling to home and school on their own. Because we were like, well, what about siblings? And what if you have a student that's older, but then you also have a younger student? How are they getting home together? And he's like, well, the younger sibling, just when they're done, they just go home. They just walk home. And the older sibling, when they're done, they'll go. And so he uses kids as an example. He has a son that I think is 13. And then his other son is 11. And so he's like, my 11-year-old rides his bike about a mile to school, and my 13-year-old rides his bike 3 miles to school, and my 13-year-old has been cooking meals for my younger son for a few years now. And we were just like, oh Oh my God. But what I thought was interesting about that little snippet in relationship to the culture is that, you know, this is known as one of the happiest countries in the world. And I think some of that contributes to it, because I thought, what an alleviation of stress if you know your work days have built-in times where you can take a break if you need to, you can make a doctor's appointment if you need to, you can work or be there for your sick child for a few hours longer in the morning. That has to contribute to their happiness, because I feel like stress levels are reduced. So there's that. Class sizes seem to be about the same. Small is 20. They can have up to 30 students though. So we did that, and let me hold on a second. Oh, and then again with the schedule, it's based on like where we think of first trimester, second trimester, or first term, second term. Their schedule is based on the number of lessons in a term. So I think he has to teach 24 lessons during the course of what they consider a term, and I can't quite remember what a term constituted. But again, students' schedules vary. Like their schedules are not all the same. Then we did a little jigsaw activity where we had to look at I think there were a total of 7, but we studied 6. So each group was given a core standard to look at and like read through and dissect and teach the others. So the one I looked at was on cultural proficiency. It just worked out that way for me. And I'm just gonna read a sentence to you that came from that standard that all of us were really surprised by. I'll read 2 of them. So one of the directives was to guide students in understanding what is acceptable as a violation of human rights. And that included things like having good manners, experiencing and interpreting culture, art, and cultural heritage. And also it said schools will work together to systematically promote recognition and appreciation of human rights. We just thought that was interesting, because I can't think of any standard that's so explicit in American schools that so explicitly talks about the idea that we want kids to understand what it means when human rights are violated. What does that look like? How should we respond? So we were just shocked by it, because it's very clear that that's something that they want to have students be taught. And one of the things that I said is that a lot of that standard really had a lot of American ideals in it. Like when you think of America, these are the ideals that we say we live by, but they are putting them in practice, in my opinion, at least in the educational system, much better than we are. I know that we have a lot of schools that want to talk about diversity and cultural proficiency, but a lot of schools do that to a point. They're not going to get in anything that can be perceived as political, especially when we talk about gender issues, gay and lesbian family dynamics. I know that a lot of districts are very leery of teachers even bringing that up, and I feel like that is a part of human rights violation, in my opinion. I know some of you will agree or disagree with that, but I thought that was amazing. So then we kind of wrapped it up there. It was very short. Shamika was saying it was one of the PDs where she's like, I don't want this to end. I wish we could keep going, because he has such a good like vibe about him. And it was just really interesting. So when we read the standards, one of the things that I also want to mention before I end this little clip is that our standards start with the phrases students will. Theirs starts with to guide. And the difference, I told them, I said, when you read the standard and it says student will, and like you have a student that doesn't quite hit the mark, I know my immediate reaction would be like, the student didn't, like you blame it on the student because of the way the standard's written. But when it says to guide and the student doesn't get it done, then you have to reflect on, there was something I didn't do to guide them to that point. And I thought that was something that I should think about. So that was the first day. I've been talking for 12 minutes now. So, but that was in a nutshell. It was amazing. It was great. It was followed by a day of sightseeing, and I took some clips of that, and I'm not quite sure how I'll edit all of this together, but you will see all of that. So it's 11 o'clock at night. I'm going to show you what it looks like, and then I need to take my little self to bed. So here is what it looks like at 11 o'clock at night. This is just about as dark as it's going to get. It's not going to get much darker than that, but that is the view from our hotel room. So
I
I'm going to get in the shower, wash my face, brush my teeth, and get ready for another day in Finland. So I will see you guys sometime tomorrow.